Abdalla, if we can, let's start off by talking about how you got your start in the oil and gas industry.
Sure. It's actually one of the few things that worked according to plan or kind of by design. Growing up in Egypt in the Middle East, I saw how energy really impacted people's lives. And so that's essentially economies of countries, and that would translate to global economies. And so I always wanted to be directly involved with the supply side of the equation. And given that oil and gas had the lion's share of the supply, I decided to pursue a petroleum engineering degree.
And if you can, let's talk about advice you may have for younger professionals that are really trying to find their way in the industry.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it advice, but really what I would tell myself 10 years ago and what I try to work on every day. But the first and foremost is being introspective, figuring out what you want. A lot of people are going to have ideas for you, society is going to have ideas for you, and so really determining what you want in life for yourself is the first thing. The second is getting rid of your biases. Everybody has biases, and the only way I know how is to maximize exposure. And then I'll move on to the obvious, which is absolutely instrumental, and that's hard work. There is no way around hard work consistently that drives achievement and drives success. And don't be afraid to fail. You're going to fail. You're going to get it wrong. Again, talking to myself here. But don't be afraid to fail or get it wrong. It's definitely a part of growth.
Great advice there, Abdalla. What about a challenge or risk that you faced? Can you pinpoint a certain one maybe that helped you, that you navigated through and that's helped you as well?
Sure. I mean, let's talk about the current challenge, right?
True.
The oil and gas industry is struggling. I mean, I don't need to quote rig count. That translates into a rig hand that was supporting his family or her family. Mm-hmm. Not being able to, translates to oil and gas that are not going to be produced, midstream dedications that don't mean anything anymore, and a lot of capital destruction, and a lot of capital mismanagement. Capital markets are dry. And so it's a lot of problems, and it didn't start just because of the pandemic. It's U.S. resource plays were already struggling. The pandemic just exacerbated the issue and accelerated the outcomes. And so there's a lot of problems there, and this is the time for perseverance. This is the time to keep working hard and focusing. And if oil goes back to $80 and we solve a lot of these problems, there is a bigger problem of what is actually the impact of this on the environment. Obviously, there's a lot of good that comes out of oil and gas, but historically, we haven't done a great job assessing the bad, to put it in simple terms. And so I think we're starting to see a lot of these conversations now with public companies and even with private capital. But going forward, focusing on how do we minimize the bad while maximizing good is the simplest way I can put it. And it's obviously a complex problem, and I don't have many answers, but I hope to be part of the solution.
That is great to hear. We do appreciate those words. What about work-home life balance? That can be difficult, especially right now. Do you have any advice there, that million-dollar question?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it gets tough because everybody has a different idea of what work-life balance is. And it goes back to being introspective and kind of figuring out what works for you. I'm going to quote Tom Blassingame, my professor, one of my mentors for about 10 years now. And he always said, you can achieve anything, not everything. And he usually puts sorry in parentheses. And so if you want outstanding achievement, there's no other way, there's no shortcuts other than hard work and long hours, right? But it's very hard to start your own company, be very influential at work, work out 6 times a week, and eat healthy, and go to social events and do all the things at once. And so what I would say is introspectivity and figure out what you want, and then see how the different pie charts would fit what you want. There is a year I worked an average 110 hours a week. There's another year where I worked 50 to 60. Obviously the pie charts look different and goals look different from one year to the other. And it's always going to be dynamic. It's never going to be a static, a third, a third, a third, or whatever the split is of work-life balance. But again, it starts with being introspective and then filling a dynamic pie chart according to what you want to accomplish in life at which part of life. And again, this is all really easy said than done, right? And I struggle with it every day, but that's the hope.
Well, we really appreciate your words of expertise and also you sharing your story with us. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor, Abdalla.
Thanks, glad to be here.
You're very welcome.